resilience in power utilities in the Pacific Island. I'll just talk about the risk and about some of the efforts being made to improve resilience among power system utilities. Okay, yeah, I have 15 years experience operating the Fiji electricity grid, 7.5 years in Nauru electricity, and have had extensive relationships with the other islands of the Pacific. So I'll talk in general about what they face. Risk assessment. First, the ring of fire around the Pacific, as you can see, and some of you are familiar with this. But notice the south covers a lot of Pacific islands down here, from Papua New Guinea, Solomons, Vanuatu, Fiji, Tonga. Hey, what is happening? Is someone trying to change this? Sorry, something is happening. Okay. Now, you will notice in 2022, there was a volcanic eruption in Tonga. It's an interesting one. I mean, I remembered in Fiji hearing the sounds of the eruption, thinking it was a blast from a nearby quarry. But that took out the fiber optic cable. And unfortunately, Tonga had put in some smart meters with the server being off island. So that caused problems with them. And they started estimating their bills, which was higher than normal. And suddenly everybody in the media was full of it in Tonga. Was how could a volcano cause electricity bills to be higher than normal? And it was badly managed PR, and so it ended up in a parliamentary inquiry, and a head had to roll. So these are then we have cyclones. I've just graphed here the Category 5 cyclones affecting Pacific Islands, both in the south and the north. And just over these limited years of tracking it, you can see the intensity is increasing. And this does not include Category 3 and Category 4 cyclones, because if you look at 1985, we had one Category 5, but in the space of 3 months, this was part of 5 cyclones that swept through Fiji. And I remember it well because I spent all that time in the control center managing the system through the cyclones. And those cyclones, I still remember the names because their first letter of each cyclone name almost spelled the word enough. There was Eric, Nigel, Odette. Eric, Nigel, Odette, Gavin, and Hina. And Hina was a Category 5 one. So we frequently have cyclones. That's one of the greatest risks we have. The El Nino, La Nina years, which obviously is something that comes out of what's happening in the Pacific. And in the Pacific, like Fiji, there'll be severe droughts, which is very hydro-based system, meaning we can get 20% less hydro energy in that year. And since the alternative is diesel, that's a major impact on the cost. Whereas in Nauru, which is near the tropics, we can have an unusually wet year, which means reduced solar production. And in the Pacific, everyone's putting in a lot of solar too. So these are some of the impacts that can happen. Climate change and sea level rise. We have a lot of atolls. There's some countries like Kiribati, Republic of Marshall Islands, and Tuvalu, that if the sea level rose, there's nothing, forget about contingencies, there's nothing there won't be any island at all. They'll just have to move out and find a place somewhere else. Hopefully another country will take them in. But that's the reality that is being faced by these islands. However, like in Fiji, there's a lot of atolls too, and those islands would be submerged. And so sometimes your resilience means plan to move off island if that happens. Coastal flooding, storm surges. And here's an example in Fiji of an island in on the main island of Fiji, village on the main island. So these are some of the risks that face, apart from other operational risks, such as the fact that Pacific Islands are located far from their suppliers. So they got to manage their stock and probably keep more stock than necessary to make sure that they can respond to events. Disaster mitigation and response, risk evaluation. With the World Bank, I think last couple of years, under the Pacific Power Association, which is the association where all members of Pacific Island, all utility members of the Pacific Island, all Pacific Island utilities are members of this association. We've developed tools for identifying the risk, evaluating the impact, and developing a response to those risks, and an economic tool to evaluate the economics of responding and improving resilience. So utilities have been trained, but there's still more need for more training. Cyclones damage is one of the highest risk and more frequent in the Pacific Islands. I remember the experience in 1982 as a young engineer driving down a road, 80 kilometers of road in Fiji, and every pole was broken in half. And the response to that experience in 1982 was to reevaluate all the design of the poles, of the line, and the construction. There was a wholesale reevaluation of the design and the manuals and the construction methods, etc. And as a result, we've not had that extensive damage as in 1982. And one of the things with cyclones, as much as you can improve all your designs, and you still will have some damages. And so you've got to also look at how you respond and how you can respond quickly and effectively to these damages. Now, the Pacific Power Association with the World Bank has been looking into a fund called the PDAP. This is a kind of fund where it can be activated quickly after a cyclone, where member utilities can help the utility that has experienced the cyclone damages. And that can be activated very quickly. They're just looking for seed funding to implement that scheme. The Australian government has a disaster assistance program where they have stock in equipment and material over in Brisbane and have contracted, I think, at least 2 lines company in Australia who can be activated quite quickly to move into a disaster area with linesmen, equipment, and material, and begin restoration as soon as possible. This idea came up when Cyclone Winston, which was the second most intense cyclone ever after the one that swept through the Philippines. The New Zealand government had paid for Tongan linesmen to come to Fiji and help with the restoration. So that idea about helping each other came up then. And the Pacific Power Association is in discussions with the World Bank, ADB, and other donor partners to fund programs for improving resilience in the Pacific Island electric grid. So that's it from the Pacific. I've just done a quick one. So thank you, Vinakawa Levu. Thank you.